Good morning or good afternoon now. Welcome to Beaver Politics. I am Jana, stands for Just Another North American, and this is Breaking the Dam. We're going to be talking, this show is on every Saturday from 12 noon, 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 2 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. And what we talk about here is mostly mental health, but from a political direction, meaning how politics and mental health kind of are coinciding right now with everything going on. Today's conversation is going to be mostly about grief and loss, and I thought it would be a good idea. I was considering this topic in the first place, but since the Ontario election has happened and there is some political loss going on, because grief, and we'll talk about that in a little more detail, grief is not just about death. Grief is about loss. It's about losing things that are important to you. So, right now, people are dealing with a lot of political loss. The States, I felt a huge amount. I can't speak for everyone, but I'm talking about myself. I felt a huge amount of political loss when Trump won the election. Whether he won fairly or not, I don't know. But the point is, he is now the leader of the United States. I won't even call him a president. I don't know if he's even a president.
But that loss was exaggerated yesterday.
Yes. It was just another kick in the pants is how it felt. Like that's still not enough. We're still going to vote conservative. And I took that pretty hard in a lot of ways. It took me a while to get over it. I didn't post for a couple days after the election because I needed some time to think about it, If anybody is interested in coming up on the panel, you just click on the bottom right of your screen under the pink and blue person guests, and that will put you up on multi-guest. If you want to say anything, I try to keep track of the comments, but I'll admit that the comments are secondary to people I'm talking to on the panel. So I may miss things in comments. If you want to come up and talk, you're more than welcome to. We could use some more guests as we talk about this. So is there a place on the Discord to vent? I have no support system, struggling mentally. Oh, Joker, I'm so sorry. That is really hard. Did you want to come up and chat a little bit? Yeah, you don't have to overshare. That's up to you. You're welcome if you want to come up. If you don't, that's okay. Hi, Healing. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. And Joker, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down your gamer tag, and I'm going to see if there is a spot. I don't know if we have a venting spot, but maybe we need one on our Discord. You're nervous talking? You can try if you want. The worst that can happen is, you don't know what to say, but that's okay. We're just here to have a conversation, and this is a friendlies conversation, so nobody's going to try to challenge you or anything like that. We'll just be talking. So, Joker... Just give me a second, 2019, because I just want to see if they're cosplay girl. Because they asked a question I can't answer quickly. But if there isn't a place for talking on the Discord server, there probably should be. So we'll figure that out. Let's see here. So how are you doing today, Helen? Sorry I cut you off. I got distracted there. No, how are you feeling after the election?
Oh, well, I don't think I feel any different than anybody else at this point, wondering what the heck happened. And I did have the opportunity to speak to someone that I know that lives in Ontario who said they were going to vote. Yeah. I said, well, you know what? There's not enough people in Ontario getting out there to vote. There's a very, very high percentage that leave it up to chance. And I said, so how are you feeling about Doug Ford getting back in? And the response I got was, oh my God, I can't stand the guy, and here he is again. And I said, and this is why I keep saying it's important for people to get out and vote, and you better vote in the federal election, because if you leave it up to chance, you may as well say you voted for whatever comes up.
Yeah, a non-vote is in a way, it's a statement, right?
Exactly.
It's not worth your time. And I believe there are a lot more people that would have voted Liberal if they really were paying attention. And I feel like with only, 44% of people voted, something like that. It was under 45. Yeah. What about the other 55% of people? Like, what stopped them from getting out of their house and voting? And how can we prevent that from happening federally? Because it feels like the foreshadowing, right?
Jenna, I've been asking that question too. And so the person that I've been speaking to is a family member.
Hmm.
Her and I have been talking about politics now for months. I've never been so involved in politics as I am now.
Yeah.
And I've been trying, she was of course listening to Fox and CNN and all the disinformation. And I had continuous arguments, not arguments, discussions with her on the
Hmm.
truth. And I've been telling her to fact check, to make sure she, becomes aware. So what I said to her yesterday was, most of people in Ontario are just like you. They're leaving it up to chance. They don't can't be bothered to really get to know and get information and spread what they hear because they're trusting it.
Yeah.
They're trusting the people that are saying these things, and those people are trusting other people. And really, all we're doing is getting disinformation all across the board. So I said, now you need to be smarter and start to get, start reading up and start checking. So I personally think people get too caught up in their own lives. They
Hmm.
don't have time to read and research.
Oh, yeah, Casper Queen was saying in chat that it shows that people are sick of politics. I get that, but
Yeah.
it's
But it's
honestly in our
still,
lifetime never been so important.
oh my
You,
gosh,
you don't have,
Jana.
nobody has the luxury to be sick of politics.
Right.
Yeah,
Living is political.
it affects every aspect of your life and every aspect of the lives of people around you. So
Exactly.
to say that I don't want to get political is like, you don't need to share your politics if you don't want to. That's a personal choice, but you need to vote. You need to do your research and you need to vote. That's the least that as a citizen you need to do.
And
Make,
I
after what
would
and after what
really, really
happened,
like to see
sorry.
some reforms.
good for you,
You
Queen.
know,
Yeah,
leaning
she did. Pastor
towards
Queen did vote. Yeah, but
leaning
I understand.
towards something that Australia does.
Mm. And what do they do?
Um, it's a mandatory vote,
I like that.
and what happens is if you haven't voted, it affects your taxes. So you know, so I saw $50, I saw $200, where it comes, it's a hit against your taxes
Yeah.
when you do file your taxes. But Canada could turn it around and make it a benefit if you
Yeah,
voted,
that would be cool if you got
you
like a
know?
slight tax break or something for voting.
Right. You
Hmm.
know, your voting tax benefit, they could call it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Like, and there can be certain situations where you get an out for not having to vote. Maybe who knows what those would be, but for difficulty,
Someone
like just like you can get out of going to court, right? If it creates a difficulty for you, but voting really shouldn't. There should be mail-in ballots so that even people who are disabled can vote and just have someone drop their ballot off for them in a mailbox or
Someone,
something, or online, or I don't know. I don't know the answers, but I know there must be a way. If Australia is doing it, we could do it too. So,
Yeah,
uh,
someone
so
said in the comments, I just read someone saying in the comments that a lot of people don't get out and vote because they say my vote really won't matter.
it does.
And that's what a lot of people are thinking because I've heard it too, where
Hmm.
they're saying, well, what difference does it make? They're all rigged. They already know who's going to win before we even vote. And that's what the mentality is right now because of what's happening in the US, right?
Yeah.
and what's so bizarre about that is we see that it does matter that they don't vote. We
Right.
Yeah.
see it with these low
Well, when
turnouts.
hundreds and thousands and 55% of people don't vote, those votes don't count, but they would have if you know what I mean? Sure, I understand the whole one person doesn't make a difference thing, but you're not one person. You're one of many, and it's your job to get out and do your piece of the work.
But it
And that,
does make a difference, even that one vote, a huge
well,
difference.
there have been, certain areas like in Canada and the States where it's like 10, 15 votes between people. So it does absolutely make a difference. And yeah,
We just
Trump won
we
because people didn't vote. I
we
agree.
need to figure out how to get people out there voting. We really do
I
before
agree.
our election comes up.
Yeah. So let's just break off and talk a little bit about loss because I think that's what a lot of people are feeling right now. We have to work through it. I was definitely straight in the anger stage on Wednesday night, or Thursday night, I should say. Just I kind of shut down for 24 hours and didn't even post anything. I don't think. just because I needed some time to digest it. Because I don't like posting when I'm angry. Whenever I've done that, I don't like it. So I wait until I'm not angry anymore and then post what I want to say. But let's talk a little bit about the stages of loss and how it affects us in grief. And this is from the Scientific American. Um, they spoke to Paulina Boss, a professor at the University of Minnesota, who has spent 45 years as a psychotherapist, and she coined the term ambiguous loss in the 1970s. When there was talk about the loss for people missing in action in the United States, soldiers during the Vietnam War, I assume, if it's the 70s, and also how loss affected us during the pandemic, because we had a lot of losses. And politically right now, as a country, we are suffering a loss because of the Trump winning in the United States was a huge one, because he is a direct threat to our democracy. And I don't think that is something that can be taken lightly. And that affects how we feel safety wise, right? Because I think a lot of the loss is a loss of our own safety, our own
Jana?
personal safety, the safety of our friends, our family, our country, the safety of people that we may know. And like we have close relationships in the United States. I have a lot of people, I have literal friends in the United States that I'm worried about. And I have a lot of TikTok and online friends and creators who I worry about. I worry about their safety in this environment, especially the ones speaking up. Um,
Jana,
yeah.
do you have any moderators in here?
Oh, no, I'm my only moderator right now, I think. Let me take a quick look through. I do not. What's going on in chat?
X order.
X order? Largest turnout of young voters in history. He did. I can't argue that. I mean, not like what he's saying, but is he saying anything? Or they? Liberals are crying. Yeah, X order? No, we're not crying. We're angry. We're many things, but I'm as you can see, I'm here. I'm not crying. For some reason, the conservatives really and Republicans in the United States really seem to want to see what they call liberal tears, and that's disturbing to me as well, because I don't know what that says about you as a person, that you're waiting to see people hurt. Like I'm not voting to see people hurt. Quite the opposite. I'm voting to protect people. So when I see that kind of thing, I do worry about the state of mind of people who want to see the liberal tears so bad. Like, what did we do to them? Offer them better health care? I don't know what that's about and why they're directing it. But if they keep it up, I will bump them out of chat. So just let me know. Yeah, it is, Trista. It's a very bizarre thing to want to see suffering. I don't understand it, and I get it a lot on my posts. Oh, liberal tears! I can't wait to see the liberal tears. I can't wait to see you. You lose your woke yada yada, and it's just sad. So it makes me worry about the person posting more than it offends me, if that makes sense. Do
Jenna, it really worries. What's coming up really worries me. You just said healthcare. And anytime somebody says healthcare, it really makes me cringe. I very, very recently had a hip replacement surgery that I desperately needed, that I finally got my life back.
nice.
And if the wrong party wins, we're doomed. Like, there's a lot of people that are not going to have that. And I'm just thankful right now that I already had my surgery, but I'm praying that everybody else has theirs as well. So we need to really get on that one, and never mind the liberal tears. Those ones, we already know what party they're on, right? But it's sad. And we just need to kind of ignore them and just move forward with our way of thinking, us woke people.
Okay, and we've got Francis here. Francis dropped. Okay, I guess Francis didn't want to be here or dropped accidentally. Just go ahead and ask up again, Francis, if you dropped accidentally. I was just about to unmute you to let you talk. So what are the stages of loss? Like, let's talk a little bit about what we're feeling right now, because there are 5 stages that Kubler-Ross initially talked about in the late 60s, actually, when they put forth this. There was denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And I think everybody's like, I didn't go through, well, I kind of did go through the denial stage, but that was before the election, where I was hoping that maybe possibly, they would vote Doug Ford out. And I've had a lot of denial with the U.S. election because I didn't want to believe Trump could win, and it just seems so unreal to me, especially with Project 2025 being so clearly his agenda, even though he said it wasn't. Um, Grief can happen before the exactly, Trista. It was my denial was denial of what I knew that Trump was going to win. I just didn't want to know that Trump was going to win. So that was my before denial. When someone is, say, like, has a terminal illness, you certainly mourn them and go through the stages, or some of the stages, while they're still alive. And that's kind of the same thing with politics, right? Well, there was still some hope. I just couldn't believe that they would actually vote Trump back in. But it happened. Whether it was, on the up and up or not, it's still what we're dealing with. So we can't change what happened. So then, and denial is basically just not acknowledging the possibility, not acknowledging the reality of it. Like even afterwards, I think a lot of people really wanted to believe that something was going to happen quickly, right? And that
And
didn't
that
happen.
very much happens in any kind of relationship, whether it be
Hmm.
a perceived relationship with your political party leader or your spouse or a friend. You start to feel that when the reality of the disillusion kicks in.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be really hard to get past the denial stage because we just don't want it to be real. Because it's like, honestly, I don't blame people who didn't want to believe this was real, because I don't want to be living in this reality. But here we are. And that's why we're going through stages of grief, because the people that are feeling the grief are the ones that are solidly in the reality that what's going on in the United States is the dismantling of democracy. And we've lost a huge ally, because I don't believe that they're our ally anymore. Does that mean that that's forever? No. But while Trump is in office, or any of Project 2025 is in office, they're not an ally. So even if something, like, I've looked into this for my own curiosity's sake, if something happens to Trump, say he has a heart attack or whatever, and passes away, Vance just takes over and everything just goes on for the next 3.5 years. There's no early election called, nothing like that. So, and Vance is probably worse. He's not better.
Definitely worse.
He's not an
Definitely
improvement. So
worse.
we're hooped until, and people say, oh, 4 years. Are you sure? Are you sure it's 4 years? Because I'm not. I'm not sure Trump will have an election. We will see, but I'm not counting on it. I think it's going to be however much time it takes for
Thank
them.
God the Conservatives won in Ontario. Let's go.
Hi, Tyson. This is a friendlies only chat because we're talking about loss right now. So if you're on that side, that's fine. Nothing against you, but you're not going to be in the chat because we're talking
No, but
about loss.
You're talking about
Pardon?
what?
We are talking about grief and loss in the wake of politics. So we are lefties. Well, you're glad that Ford won, which is fine. I'm not here to argue about you. That's kind of the point. We're not here to debate today. There's a debating forum on Friday nights through Beaver Politics if you're interested in debating. But right now we're just friendlies. So this is a liberal friendlies kind of thing, or leftist. I don't want to say liberal, leftist friendlies meeting. Okay.
Oh, yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You have a great day, Tyson.
You as well.
All right. Sorry about that. So for anybody looking to come up, we're looking for friendlies only. We're talking about loss here. This isn't a debating forum. Debates happen on Beaver Politics every Friday night from 6 until sometimes like way early in the morning. I think she goes for 6 hours. So I think it's 1 a.m. So if you're looking to debate, that's the time to come on here.
They can go to JB's forum.
Oh, yeah, there's tons of debate forums online. So there's lots of places if you want to go debate. So let's talk a little bit about anger, because anger was what I was feeling quite a while after the American election. I was stuck in the anger phase. I think the really important thing to remember that that loss, number one, the stages are not in order necessarily. You can start in any stage, and bounce around. So they're not specifically like, they tend to be, she writes them in the most logical order that they tend to happen in, but it's not always that way. You might start right in anger. You might start right in bargaining. You might jump back to denial after you've been in acceptance. You can go all over the spectrum, and you may not experience all 5 of the stages. You may only experience a few of them, and you may experience some simultaneously. So you can be like angry and bargaining at the same time, or, you know what I mean? Be in more than one stage at the same time. So these are just important things to remember as you're going through this. And to be kind to yourself, because this is like loss is, you're grieving, and it can feel just as real as grieving the loss of a person or an animal, a pet, depending on what stage you're in. And anger is when once a person comes to understand the information they received and accepts the reality of the loss, they may experience anger. Anger is a natural response directed towards oneself, family members, doctors, the government, even God. It's normal to be angry at God when things, or whatever your religious belief is, when things go this way. Let's see here. Anger is a normal part of the grieving process, although it may seem hurtful or offensive to loved ones. And anger is often a manifestation of grief. And it can present itself in various ways. It can, blaming is a big one, blaming the people that didn't vote, and rightly so, right? But where does it really get us? It's more, right? Like, it's not proactive. Blaming God, feeling angry towards God. Why are you doing this to us? Like, why are you letting these things happen? How many of us have ever said that who have any kind of spiritual or religious belief? Like, why? Why are you letting so many people die in the Ukraine? Why are you not stepping in and, stopping Trump from dismantling democracy, et cetera, et
Yeah,
cetera? Like,
that's
why?
a whole different thread because, we were all given free will. So,
It's a debate, right? But it's still normal if you do feel anger in that way. Like, no matter what even if you do believe that God just gives us free will and has nothing to do with that, you can still be angry at him for making that choice. Does that make sense? And
Yes.
I'm not saying it's God's fault any more than it's a doctor's fault when they lose a patient, which may not be the case, right? Like, you can only do so much, but
What
that
about the
anger is still
people?
natural, even if
Sorry.
not. Yeah, and
Sorry. What about the people stuck in disbelief that this is
yeah,
actually happening?
the
Like
people
that's a
stuck.
part of it, right?
And I think a lot of people, especially on the mid to conservative side, might be in that disbelief that they just don't want to accept that what's going on is not normal. This is not the way
yeah,
a democracy works. What's going on with Trump is not normal right now.
that cognitive dissonance is it gets people and they stay stuck
Yeah.
there.
And I'm just going to cut in quickly. If you guys can all share the live, if you have a chance, the easiest way is to just press in the middle of your screen, hold it for a few seconds, and a pop-up will come up so you can share it with up to 15 people at a time, I believe. Please do tap your screen, tap, tap, tap. Tapping is clapping. It helps get the more, the more taps you get, the more people see it, the more it pops up on the feed. So it's really important to do that. So we want to get as many people as possible in here. And if you have a chance and you can afford to, gift the panel when you can. And we accept gifts as well. It just helps us keep this channel going and growing, which is what we want to do. We want to grow this channel to have this space for all of us to have here, and for a place for education and learning. So if you guys can do that, and if there's anybody else that wants to come up as a guest, we're definitely looking to hear more people's opinions on this. All you got to do is press on the icon on the bottom that has the pink and blue person with the plus guests, and it will show me that you want to come up here. It just puts a pop-up on my screen. And just going to check through there. Okay, sorry about that, Desiree. But I just wanted to make sure I was saying that. So when you're stuck in denial, that is a great question. Let me see what I can find for that quickly from a good psychology site, because it is really hard when you're stuck in denial. Please.
I think if being stuck in denial, you don't really, the person doesn't really want to accept the truth because it will shatter everything they know and feel as being real.
Exactly. So, so in the denial stage of grief, this is from Very Well Mind, which is a pretty good website I've used quite a bit when I was writing papers for low level, but still. In denial stage of grief, you may struggle to consciously or unconsciously acknowledge the loss, which is what's happening for a lot of people because they may realize that Trump won and that's not a problem, but they're not realizing that democracy lost at the same time, right?
Yeah, the
And it becomes
enormity.
pretty, yeah, the enormity of what this means, because I think a lot of people that voted for Trump thought they were voting for Trump 1.0. And this is not the same as his first term at all. At all. He is a different person. He's cognitively, in my opinion, very different this time around. And I can only go off of what I see. I cannot diagnose him, obviously, but I see signs of dementia, and so have other people. Like even that forward lean that he does is a sign of some types of dementia. Not to mention, he rambles a lot. He forgets. He forgot that he called Zelensky a dictator the other day. Like, that's not something you tend to forget, I would think. And seemed actually a bit confused by it. The anger that you see, attacking people, etc. Those are, potentially signs of dementia. It's
Yeah,
what's scary is that there's nobody to hold. They don't care. Like the people that are handling him are fine with it. So,
I my ex was diagnosed with frontal lobe dementia,
mhm,
and there are a lot of similar behaviors
yeah,
that have seen with the convict that I experienced with the ex.
yeah,
You know, the denial, the lashing out,
very common.
especially, and the verbal lashing out, and then the denial that the person even said anything,
hmm
you know, is quite remarkable.
It is. And give Lori a chance. Hi, Lori. Did you want to just tell us your age? I think you've been up here before. Yeah, Lori Ochi. Yeah,
Yeah,
you have it. Sorry about that.
I'm 72.
72. And what are your thoughts on this? We're talking mostly about the feelings of loss around politics
Yeah.
right now with the U.S. Election and now Ontario.
Yeah, and I live in Quebec, but
Hmm
we border on Ottawa. It takes
Yeah.
me 15 minutes to get to the Parliament building. So I'm
Oh, you're
closer to
really close.
Ottawa to the Parliament buildings than my
So you live in
sister who
Hull.
lives
Yeah.
in Ottawa.
Yeah.
So I'm both, Yeah, I feel a loss from yesterday.
hmm
I really took it hard the way Trump and Vance
Exactly.
went hard on Zelensky, and I know everybody's talking about it, as
hmm
they should, because it's wrong. It's totally wrong what they did.
I
It's
agree.
chipping away further at democracy. My children are half Eastern European. My ex-husband is completely Eastern European,
Yeah.
from Poland, White Russia at the time,
Yeah.
and they came over on the ship. They
Yeah.
fled Germany. So I really feel for that man who's fighting so hard for his country. And all they had to say to him was, "Why didn't you wear a suit?"
I know. Like, I never even noticed what he was wearing. He was perfectly dressed perfectly fine. I didn't even notice it until they pointed it out. And I'm like, dude has his reasons. Who cares? Like, he's dressed appropriately. And respectfully, in my opinion, a suit is it is a Western oligarchy status symbol kind of thing.
Right.
And
And it's
why does he need to be wearing that right now?
nobody ever said that to the Saudi delegation.
hmm
Ever.
Well, exactly. The Saudis don't wear suits. They wear, I don't even know the name of the dress, but and that's fine too. Like, what is it? What was this politician's problem? And then they're laughing at him. Okay, they have this guy. This is the scenario. What I saw. They have Zelensky with a couple of his people surrounded by cameras, surrounded by Trump's people, and they're basically ganging up on the guy. Like, how is
I,
that live on TV and
you
filming
know,
it and releasing it?
yeah, like I commented on one of your posts, I really feel like this whole thing was a setup. They wanted to humiliate him and to make him grovel.
It was unacceptable. It was just so many things, and it was another like nail in democracy's coffin to me, because the way that they were acting was not the way I would expect the leader of the free world to be acting. And Vance's "you can't even say thank you" was just for what, the table scraps that are being thrown, like trying to sell off his minerals in parts of his country to make a deal with Russia who invaded. Why? Why would why would he be thanking? He should, he was grateful to Biden, and so, but gratitude. First of all, you don't give something for a thank you. Number one, you do not help someone for praise. And that's basically what Vance was saying. We need the praise. And that's childish, immature, and really small of them. You help when help is needed, not to get something back for it. That's making it all about you, which is what Trump really does, right? He makes it all about him. And secondly, what do they have to be grateful for with Trump? Trump is basically trying to get them to deal with Russia in a way that they have to give up land. Why should they have to? It's their land. Russia invaded. So why should they be grateful for that? And should Zelensky be grateful to Trump for Musk cutting off the internet, the Starlink? Is that something they should be grateful for too? Like, it's ludicrous. The whole thing was like, I don't know. It was like watching a spoof. The only thing more disturbing than that was probably that video that he released for Gaza, for Trump Gaza, which was, the first time I saw it, I couldn't even believe that was them. I thought it was someone making fun of them in a very tacky way. But no, it was them. Like money raining from the sky over Musk. What? Is that all they care about, is money? It was disgraceful. It was disgusting. It was disturbing on many levels, because like, just, showing the horror that is Gaza right now, and how he's going to turn it into a tropical paradise where people can, children can run on the beach and stuff like that. Do you think Gaza doesn't want peace? But they want their country. You can't just remove people from their land. Like, it doesn't make sense. But let's get back to grief, because that's what we're talking about today. And we're talking about what to do when we're in the denial stage of grief and having a hard time getting out. And denial is very much a defense mechanism that our brain has when something is too much for us to handle. Does that make sense? So our brain goes into denial when the truth or reality is hard to accept. And I can understand that with what's going on in the States. I have a hard time. Like, I wonder, am I overreacting a lot of the times, and have to reanalyze what's going on there and go, no, I don't think I am. This is bad. Like, this is very bad. It helps us minimize the pain of a loss. It's our brain's way of protecting us from the pain, so that we have some time to adjust to our new reality. So that's the problem, is what we really need is to hope and find a way to work through with people who are in that denial phase out of it before the next election, before they think that PP is a safe option, because he's not. And again, that's my opinion. But yeah, as Gene Pin said, I'm not overreacting. I don't think I am either. But every now and then I step back and reanalyze just to make sure. And that's part of the denial stage, kind of creeping back in, going, really? Can it really be that bad? Yeah, it is. It's that bad. We're next door to Germany right now, and the 1940s, and it's a scary place to be. Do I think Carney is the one? Honestly, Normal, I do. I think strategic voting is going to be important, though, because some places are just more likely to win NDP than Liberal, and I believe in strategic voting. So even though I'm 100% behind Carney because I'm in Alberta, I am going to look at whether the NDP have a better chance here. And very thought-provoking, Normal. But yeah, I think Carney is probably the best. He's my choice. I voted for him today, actually. I finally got the Canada Post thing to work. I've been trying for 3 days and was going to go down to the post office, but today it worked. Hi, Rad. How are you doing this morning?
Not bad. Yourself?
I'm doing okay. Do you have any thoughts on this? We're just talking about how grief, and how many people are in a state of grief right now. Do you have any thoughts on how you're feeling? Are you from Ontario, by any chance?
No, I'm from Alberta, actually.
Alberta as well. Yeah, we've got a lot of Albertans on Beaver Politics. Kind of awesome. What are your thoughts after the Ontario election?
Well, it's it's not surprising. Like, it was very like strategic of him. Like, the thing is, like, calling an early election like that, a lot of the other CAs for the opposition party are just not ready to have an election, just like it is in Alberta. Like, if we had an election right now today, the
Mhm.
NDP would be like,
Gosh.
there's no CAs in place in a lot of places.
Mhm. No, and that's why he did it.
Exactly.
That's why he called a snap election. Why do you think PP is pushing so hard for an election? Because he doesn't want time for, like, the NDPs already have their leader in Jagmeet, but we don't. So wanting an election as quickly as possible before someone actually even wins the Liberal leadership and before they can actually, go out and canvass and have rallies and all that. Like, he wants it now so that there's no time for them to catch up.
Well,
And
exactly. And
and
like,
that's just some BS. Like, I hope that whoever wins the Liberal leadership doesn't call an election until they have due course of time to do what they need to do, because it should be a fair fight. And if it was the other way around, they would be fighting the other way. They wouldn't want an election right away. They'd want it to wait till the fall. They'd want a fair fight. They'd want a fair, like, what's his name? Pepe has been canvassing for like the past 2 years. And he kind of flushed it all down the toilet. His entire campaign was F Trudeau and axe the tax. So maybe if he had campaigned a little smarter, he wouldn't have flushed so much down the toilet. But that's not a me problem. I'm quite grateful for that, actually. But he doesn't seem to have any ideas that are unique or his own, other than axing the tax. Yeah, denial is a way of coping with the reality you don't want to accept. So for people in denial, the best thing you can do for them, probably, going to see if they have any different ideas here. There's a lot of times when in the denial stage, there's a lot of confusion. So facts would probably be important. So if you're working or talking to someone who's in denial, state facts. Like, stay away from the emotional stuff and stick with plain facts can be really helpful. They may shut down. People in denial often do shut down and they just don't want to hear la 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 la, right? And that can be a hard one, and it may just not be the right time. So in those kinds of cases, maybe wait until they're in a mood that they're a little bit more open to having a conversation, and keep it as much of a conversation as possible, because attacking isn't going to help either, right? That'll just get the defenses up. They may just want to forget about it, or maybe they're done with politics. When you hear people say that can be part of the denial stage as well. They just don't want to, don't want to do it anymore. But unfortunately, we don't have a choice. Politics affects every aspect of our lives, and we don't have the luxury right now of not caring. We have to care. And I don't mean that you want to bring it to a point where it's hurting your mental health, but at the very least, do your research, look into your candidates, and vote. Those are the minimums that we need to do as a society if we don't want to end up in the same place the United States is. And let's see what you feel like. Just wanting to, here we go, coping. Give it time. Yeah, is the most important. I don't know how much time we have, but hopefully we have enough time before the next election, right? For somebody else for the people that are in denial to accept what's happened. I'm just going to see here. I got another one. There we go. We got Kalius philosophy coming up. Kalius?
What up?
Hey, Kalius. Can I ask just your age and whether you're left or right politically?
I'm 33. I'm kind of nonpartisan because I'm a master's of public policy person, so I kind of have to be.
Okay.
I can't really reveal those due to professional commitments.
Yeah. No,
but what I want
that's
to
okay.
say,
Go ahead.
what I want to say is that even if I look at the political situation and I look at the worst case, I believe would be in your view would be like Polyev.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing that Polyev has to depend on is the institutions, the civil service. And he has to depend on the party. He has to depend on the caucus. That type of thing, whatever Trump's doing down south right now is not going to happen in this country like that. Now, what we really need to focus on to protect ourselves is upholding the things that we value and identifying our values and entrenching them in law. So what I like about Canada as well, abortion rights are enshrined in law and protected by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
For now.
And I think that as a rules based liberalist society, what we need to do instead of reacting or overreacting is we need to keep our cool, keep our heads, and stick to the traditions that made this country great, which is adhering to the laws that we've created, but also standing up against tyranny and authoritarians and dictators.
Would you agree that
Funny
what's going on in
thing,
the
right?
States is tyranny, authoritarian dictators?
At this point, so I'm a geopolitical strategic foresight analyst. Okay,
Mhm.
and the only question I really had before Trump was elected was whether we're going to be Italy in 1939 or Poland,
Yeah, we're
and now
Poland.
we're Poland.
Yep.
And so, what I would say though, look, at the end of the day, rolling tanks into Canada, I wouldn't worry about that part. What I would worry about, we need to start considering burning bridges. And we need to start considering the fact, like, let me put it this way.
A
It
freaking
took
head.
America 2
we need
years
to
to
we need to
declare
be
war.
not dependent on America anymore. So I agree with that 100%. We cannot depend on
Well,
them
we
right
don't have a
now.
choice.
They're not an ally right now, and
Well,
they won't be
they've,
while Trump is in
well, yeah,
power.
they're an
So,
enemy.
yep,
What I
they,
would say is if
they've
you
declared
look at
economic war, basically.
Canada declared war. No, in World War II though, Canada declared war on the axis of evil 2
Hmm.
years before the Brits and the Americans did.
I know.
Okay, so we've always been ahead of the curve. We're the center of sort of global liberal thinking. And the scary thing from my view right now is all of our allies in Europe, they can't help us. We are alone here. Now,
I'm
the
just
good
going to cut
news
in.
is
Why
we
can't
are
they
a
help us?
modern,
Like, in what ways do we
peaceful.
need their help, and what do you think they can't do?
Well, look at what Starmer said. What Starmer did when he backed down to Trump's comments on Canada. That's why are we a monarchy at this point still? So there's big questions for Canadians. I just think they're going to be a lot bigger than we're used to in terms of picking the political party. Because now we're going to have to talk about where we want our nation to go and what values we're going to hold to direct us towards that end. And we're going to have to fight to keep it.
Well, and I do agree
And
100% with the values, but I think we really do need to explore that we're voting in with our values, because I don't know that
I
people are.
agree. Look,
Because my
all I'm
values are
saying, I'm
solidly
trying to,
left, and like I care.
I can sympathize. As a member of the civil service, trust me, I understand the lefty arguments and I agree with a lot of them. But what I'm saying is, this is about sovereignty and self-determination. And if
But
Canadians want to elect a conservative, that is our right as sovereign, self-determined people to
absolutely,
elect who
and
we
I think
want.
it's a mistake, though, and I'm going to say that outright. I think
Oh,
it's a
I
mistake.
agree, and that's fine. That part.
Nobody's
That's
saying
what
you
we
don't have the
get
right to vote.
after
We're
we
going to
have
have
our
an
sovereignty.
election. There will be a vote. But
Oh,
I
but
think
that's
I do
what's
not
gonna.
trust that
I agree, but
PP.
what's
I was just going to say on two levels, I do not trust PP. Number one, I do not trust, even if he was like wrapping himself in the flag and actually means it, which I don't believe he does. And he's all about supporting and saving Canada's as it is right now. I don't believe he's the person for the job. I just don't. I don't think he has the experience. I don't think that he has the demeanor. He's an attack dog or a puppy, depending on who
might
it is. And with
be
Trump, he's a puppy. And we don't need a puppy.
what I would say. Canada's system, the prime minister, it's paradoxical in the sense that it has more power, but it has less staying power. So Trump has the ability to change things from a top-down view that, well, let me put it this way. The Supreme Court of Canada wouldn't allow Pierre Poilievre to do what Trump did in America. And if Pierre
But do we
Poilievre
want
wants
to
to
count
throw away
on?
the...
I think my problem is
Pardon?
that I don't trust the government is going to be able to protect us against Trump with PP in charge. I think that they will find a way. And I don't know politics deeply enough in that kind of way to see what they would have to do
Yeah,
to
I
dismantle
see.
Canada. But I don't trust that PP would be on the side of Canada. I think he
Okay.
would sell out our resources at the very least. And that's a big deal.
Well,
Definitely a big deal.
So I'm working on what I started last year before Trump got elected. I was sponsored by the Wilson Center in DC to develop joint industrial defense policy for Canada and America. And there's two options that we can do. We can either burn the bridge and say fuck it, or we have to start thinking about the next administration.
Yeah.
And with the next administration, hopefully, I think, I'm praying honestly at this point that America is going to have a come to Jesus moment and realize this isn't the game anymore. Right. And then if that happens and we get.
I'm sorry, Kenny, I'll let you go next. Just give us a second, let Kaylee's finish, and then you'll be next, okay? Okay.
If that happens and we get to align ourselves the way we were with America, then what we need to start thinking about is building strategic reserves. Because there's not just America we have to worry about anymore. The global liberal rules-based international order, that ended. And I was talking to the former national security advisor to the PM, Vincent Rigby, and we were both saying, like, this is a moment that will go down like when Germany invaded Poland.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like that's how significant this instance in time is. If we can put the pin back in the grenade and we can manage to navigate through this tumultuous time, we're going to have to, again, paradoxically lean on America because we're the farm, they're the factory. If that's not the case, if authoritarianism has taken hold of America, then we're going to have to really do some crazy shit. Like I'm talking joint CAF, Canadian Armed Forces, and what's it called, the PLA, People's Liberation Army. Like the Chinese military would do joint exercises on the Canadian border with America. Okay, and the crazy thing is, these are the conversations happening in Ottawa right now.
I would honestly, I would take China over the United States right now if I had to pick allies. I think the United States is a bigger danger to us. And I'm not saying China's perfect.
We should have to pick. I don't think we should have to pick. And this is why I'm a big fan of the Arctic strategy that Trudeau published, but I think we need to expand it. Yeah. What we need right now is an Arctic command center. We need to revitalize an expeditionary force. And I would say the big caveat, we need to nuclearize. Because if we have nuclear weapons, America can't invade. It's mutually assured destruction. And sadly, Diefenbaker didn't want that. But it was actually Charles de Gaulle who talked about this. And what he was saying is that, America, if we give, so the way it works with the UK is America actually has control and they have to play with America. They have to align themselves. So if America attacks someone, UK goes too. France and Charles de Gaulle fundamentally disagreed. He said, no. Politics changes. We need self-direction. This is for our French defense. And so we need to look to our Quebec brothers and sisters, our Quebecois. We need to look to our Canadian brothers and sisters. We need to say, you have this cultural history of nuclear defense. Well, let's borrow from those ideas.
Right.
Let's figure out how Canada can remain true north, strong, and free, independent of a fascist, tyrannical puppet state to the south. And funnily enough, I think if we did do that, what we would start seeing is the situation America is seeing right now on their southern border. And so what we're going to have to do for the next probably...
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to give Kenny a chance to chime in here because he's been waiting a bit. Kenny, what did you want to add?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the conversation is very interesting. I think for me, I think we're watching the final season of America, right? And I think as Canadians and as proud Canadians, we definitely have to be strong and united. And at the one point, this whole 51st state thing, I am proud that a lot of Canadians are united for the first time and being patriotic and being proud to stand up and say, no, we are Canadians and understanding what it is to be Canadians. And I think that's what separates, even though we are neighbors, that's what separates US from Canada, right? As an immigrant, as a Black person,
Yeah.
my birthday is July the 1st, right? And I'm happy to be,
Oh, that's cool.
even though I wasn't born Canadian, to have the same birthday as my nation, I love it, right? And the one thing that separates Canada is that everyone is an immigrant, except if you were First Nations and whatever, but we are all Canadians. And what separates or what makes Canadians special is our values and our differences, right?
Yeah.
And I think the problem with the United States, and we can't rely on them anymore. And they're and I think when I say it's their final season, because they sold out their own people when it comes to capitalism and whatever, right?
Money
And
won.
now, yeah, and now
And I
they
think that's
you
why a
can't,
lot of us are feeling lost, Kenny, is
yeah,
because we didn't just lose. This isn't just an election where you might lose a few social services and stuff. Not that that's not
yeah,
important, but this is an election where
yeah.
they may have lost their democracy. And Canada, we're
Oh
their
yeah,
neighbors,
totally,
and
totally,
we
right?
have no control over what's going on there.
Yeah.
But yet we have to deal with the loss.
Yeah, and we knew like that night, I remember I was so depressed. I was because I knew the blowback was gonna be swift,
Yeah,
right? I knew and
I
I
didn't.
could
Maybe that was my
never,
denial.
no, I knew the blowback. I was really depressed. Like, this is not gonna be good for Canada. I couldn't
Yeah,
imagine that it would be this bad, right?
you
Because
went ways I
no
didn't see coming.
word.
Yeah,
Yeah, right, but I knew the blowback was gonna be bad. But I think as Canadians, we need whoever the prime minister is gonna be needs. I do not trust Pierre Poilievre or
neither do I.
whatever,
Hmm.
right? But we need to be strong and at the same time realize that we have to, like, as Canadians, we have a stereotype of being friendly and being pushovers, but no, like when it comes down to it, we're gonna stand up for what we're gonna stand up for, and these are our values of working together as a nation. Our healthcare system, our educational system is not perfect, but these
Hmm.
are our things that we value, right? And
Yes.
then if that means that we can't rely economically on the US, and the thing is the US has been bullies for years, and they've been so emboldened, but the world has
Yeah.
changed, and they're still stuck in the pardon my French, or excuse my language, like the white, straight, cis male, dominant, end of DEI, whatever. You understand what I'm saying?
Push
And
back
the
against
world
our
has,
values.
yeah, at
Like a
least
lot of it. Yeah.
as exactly. Like I work in the hospital in children's mental health, and my team, my coworkers, they're vast different people from different doctors, different women that are the head of the the practices and whatever at the table. We need many different people at the seat at the table because our community has changed. We're a multicultural society. We value everyone's perspective, and in the US it's like, no, they this base everything on fear of being replaced and this and that. Like, everything is fear based and fear monger and divide and conquer. And we
Yeah.
cannot, as Canadians, I hope that we don't fall with the same mistake of electing a very left leaning government
Hmm.
where, we go to the extreme because that is not our value.
Yeah. Just a sec. I got to do a puzzle. Does this one? There we
Yeah.
go. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah. I think that I think what we lost, like a lot of our loss for me anyway, like I can only speak for myself, comes from not understanding the values of the people that voted for Trump. Like
Mhm.
I
And
have
you
a hard
can't, and
time.
you can't. I don't think we ever can because that is just America.
Hmm. And I feel
Can
like
I
that
This
when
is
can I
the
give a
I see like
Yeah, go.
really heavy PP supporters, I wonder too, like I don't understand how that represents, like are their values really just the pocketbook? Because that's all PP seems to talk to is the pocketbook and to wokeism. Um, and
Well, let me
anti-immigrant
just
Beaver?
say,
What
as
what I
well.
want to say
Oh, sorry. Who's trying to speak? Is it you,
what I wanted
Kaylee?
to say.
Go ahead.
That's me. What I wanted to say is like, if one thing, the first point, the prime minister doesn't really plan anything; he chooses. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So like the civil service, like if you're gonna make industrial policy that's around defense, you're gonna talk to Impact Canada, NRCan, CCC, the Canadian Commercial Corp. You're gonna look at the DPSA, the Defense Production Sharing Agreement. There's many choices that get presented to you. Now, what I like, and what I will say is that even if I disagree with Pierre, which I do on a lot of things, I like the fact that Canadians get to decide that.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm not going to argue
And
that.
that's what I'm saying is that's the part that's at risk right now. Like in terms of like who I want to be the next prime minister, if this was a normal time, I'd obviously want Mark Carney. He's qualified. He's former bank governor of England. I've met him. He's an incredibly brilliant guy. But I don't care right now about the party politics when the system itself is at risk.
But you think
And
CP would be a
that's the
better
part
choice?
that I think.
I'm curious if you think
Honestly, if
our choices
so
are going to
the
be
way I
the
look at
Liberal
it right
candidate
now,
will probably be Carney, but maybe not. We don't know for sure yet.
it'll
Jagmeet
be Mark
or
Carney for
PP.
sure.
Those are the options. And out of those three options, Green. There's
I want
Elizabeth May too. I
if
don't
I
want to
had
discount that. That's rude. But
yeah.
out of those options, I'm voting Liberal. Like, unless
I mean,
there's an
yeah, that's
advantage
fine.
to
I don't
NDP.
look.
Yeah.
I don't care who you vote for. What I care about now is that you get to vote.
Yes, and I'm
Okay, like
grateful for
that's
that.
the part. Like that's the thing that's at risk now. Like if we devolve this into Canadians as a party politics dispute, we run the risk of ignoring the real systemic threats to our system right now. And that's the part that I'm concerned about. Like, if I had my way for the party politics side, I don't like what Trudeau has done with the PMO, and I don't like the way he's aligned the bureaucracies a bit. So that's why I'm reticent to vote for the Liberal Party. But if it was like a Mark Carney-led Conservative Party, if it was a Charlie Angus-led NDP party, I would absolutely vote for either of those. So the issue I'm having right now is we are not, and I think the Conservative Party is not paying attention to this as well. This is a bigger issue than our political. This is external to our politics. And what we need to do now as Canadians is figure out how to say, I don't like Pierre. I mean, or the other side would say, I don't like Trudeau, but I like the fact that I get to decide who runs the country.
Yeah.
And however the election goes, however the partisan politics stuff plays out, fine. What I think we need to remember is that that's a privilege that we have to even go through that process. And that's because we're sovereign Canadians.
But we need to make sure we're using that privilege to keep our country as safe as possible. And
right now, yes.
And hopefully, like, I think that's paramount, is the safety of our democracy right now, because I do believe it is directly under threat. Trump is not kidding.
I think also,
he lost Canada, and he's not joking.
That's the only thing I'm concerned about an NDP admin or Liberal admin is that their record on military defunding is quite infamous.
Did you say Liberal or just NDP? Because Liberals actually
Liberals have gutted
how does this work? When can I
NDP
speak?
hasn't been in power.
Kevin, you can speak right next.
Really
We're going to let Callie finish. Okay, Kevin?
Holy fuck.
Well, one of the stories you'll hear when I did the research and I was looking into the defense industrial stuff. One of the things you'll hear is that we commit to things in one administration, and then the following administration will gun it.
I know, and it's ridiculous sometimes. But
what I worry about now is, and that's what I mean, is that we need to evolve past viewing our politics as just a partisan dispute and realize there's a broader system that needs protection. And that's true for both Liberals, Conservatives, NDP, Green, People's Party of Canada, the Bloc, whoever.
Okay.
If you want these parties,
I'm just going to, Kevin, you can stay muted until we're finished. You'll get your chance next. I'm just going to... Okay, Callie, let's give Kevin a quick chance, and then I want to get back to talking about how this affects people
this is the
in the different stages.
How are you guys doing? It's been a good winter. Holy fuck, guys. Relax. Holy fucking
Kevin,
deep like that is so stupid. Fuck you. It's going to be a good spring. All of us nations are together.
Bye. Okay. We're not here to talk about that. We don't need people telling us that we should be grateful for things when we're talking about loss. That's not helpful, Kevin.
I'm telling you as an expert. I'm telling you as an expert who works in the business, this is a massive deal. I cannot understate how earthquake massive this shift in global politics is.
Yes,
and I'm talking to.
Do you admit, Callie, that it is a right-wing shift? Do you see that it is a far-right Christo-fascist
right-wing, left-wing? Right-wing, left-wing doesn't matter anymore.
Well,
I mean, I'm a
what do you call what's going on in the United States? Is that?
I mean, I see that. I don't see that as a result of partisan politics. I see that as a result of an empire that's collapsing. It's
It
bigger than
is
the
an
parties.
empire. It is an empire collapsing, but at the same time, even look at Brazil. They voted right wing, and their economy and everything shifted, and greatly and whatever. And then the whole, like, again, when people say anti woke, and like the right wing has taken that word and to mean something awful that that it's not. It was never meant to to
Well,
to
well, yeah.
represent.
No, woke was never meant to represent. It's being misused. It's a black idiom that is
Woke was an
getting
American
basically
idea to begin
hijacked
with.
by white right
Look,
wing.
What,
look, guys. Canada
as
But
doesn't
as
have the same systemic racism.
but it
We
does
don't
still
have
yes,
have,
we do.
woke because
but
we have different.
yes,
No, we
but
have
as
systemic racism. It's not the same as it is in America,
Okay,
yes,
let's
it
give.
is.
I'm going to give
As
Penny a
is
chance to
as
respond to that, since
right?
Penny
Like we
probably
are
has more
thinking.
experience with that than we
as
do.
as a Black Canadian, as a child who came to
And Desiree, if you
Canada,
want to cut in.
again, right? Even as I can't speak for an Indigenous person or when they were picked up from the school, but at the same time, as minorities, we were always told, any minority, whether Black, Chinese, or whatever, to dress accordingly, to know what's going on, because we don't know, who to trust. We're learning the Canadian system, so quote unquote, we have to be woke and know what's going on and our surroundings.
Yeah. And I
Okay.
don't want to turn this into a big discussion about systemic racism, but I do want to let Desiree have a chance
Yeah,
first to talk.
yeah,
And then
for
we're going
sure.
to get back to grief. Okay? Go ahead, Desiree.
Okay, I was born and raised in Canada as a Black woman, and the systemic racism is here.
Mm-hmm.
It has always been here. Canada is really great at how subtle their racism is sometimes,
Yeah.
and it really depends on where you live. I grew up in Alberta, and it was in my face. And if I had $1 for every time I was called the N-word, I could have a group of us out for dinner.
Yeah.
If I had $1 for every time I had to experience any kind of, it's just like this whole, I'm frustrated now, because
Look,
what
I
I have
agree.
experienced
Fundamental.
is
Sorry.
in direct opposition from what somebody says that it's not as bad as the US. If we had 400,000 people, it would be as bad. It's as bad, but on a lower scale.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And when
And
a person of color tells you that it is bad and this is what's going on, you need to listen to them. Period.
I agree. I agree with that. And what I'm saying is, I don't want to listen to Black Americans tell me about my country. I want to listen to Black Canadians.
well, that's what
But
you're
I
listening
don't
black
want to
to.
view,
Americans, black
and I agree with you.
Americans can see it. They see
I
what is happening
understand, but they're
here.
American.
They
Look,
see
we have had
the parallels.
good.
And if somebody from outside is telling you this is what we see going on in your country, as somebody on the outside looking inside the house, we need to listen. We do the same thing to the US when we tell conservatives and maggots, this is what we see happening in your country, and we scream at them all the time
Mhm.
for them to
Mhm.
listen to us. It's a
And we
two-way
hear
street.
and we
Okay,
hear
but
the
that
we
ship
hear the
has
dog
sailed now.
whistles. Like
Okay,
we
I
hear
agree.
dog whistles,
Look,
right?
what I'm
Before,
saying
like,
to you
when
is that,
okay, we can't
yeah,
all talk at the same time. Let Kenny have a chance,
I
Kelly's, and then I'll
apologize.
let you respond. But I
I
don't want to keep this.
thought he was done.
I don't want to keep this topic too long, because this was more about loss and systemic racism.
Okay.
But I also do not want to shut down people of color who want to talk about this when you brought it up. So, Kenny, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, as like, I remember, like, the first time when Trump was running and you said make America great again. And I was like, when was America great? And
Hmm.
who was America great for? That was always a dog whistle, right? And
Yeah.
then we hear make Canada great again. Okay, when was Canada great and who was Canada great for?
Oh, he told us, John A.
Yeah,
McDonald.
right, and yes, and we know John and McDonald's history and whatever. right?
Mm-hmm.
And how he treated the First Nations people and everything. Let's fix our mistakes by acknowledging our past and learning from that. Because if we do not acknowledge our past, we are doomed to repeat our mistakes.
Exactly.
One thing about Germany, they acknowledge their mistakes.
Absolutely.
They've put laws in place, and like to do the whole not that cannot fly in there and whatever, right?
And thank goodness the
And
party didn't
for the
win. Whew.
yeah, and for the far right stuff to becoming, you know, so extreme now, it is scary for people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's scary because the US used to be our friend. They were never perfect, but they were an ally, right? And now they are not. And we're all dealing with the fallout of the election in America. The fact that
Kenny, can I ask you a question?
Ask me a question, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to. Sorry if I interrupted. I want to let you finish. I didn't mean
no,
to.
go
No,
ahead.
no, no. I'm
What was
done,
your
brother.
question?
I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay. Would you rather live in Canada or America now as a black man?
I would always prefer. I would always pick Canada over America. Like I have my brothers and sisters on my dad's side who live in New York, and I am glad that my mom brought me to Canada instead of the United States. I would never live in the United States. I'm a proud Canadian through and through, 100%.
And I'm happy about that. What I'm getting at here is Canada has a very troubled past with systemic racism. You can look at Starlight Tours, you can look at all the policies, you can even look at the white paper that
It's
was
not.
Mm-hmm.
published talking about forced assimilation in '69, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is if America comes here and takes this country, you're going to live under the American system and you'll have less freedom there. At least
Everybody is
Canada
going to
has
have less
I
done
know
freedom.
that.
something.
I'm not in
Like,
favor. I
at least we've done something with truth and reconciliation. At least
I
we've
Of course,
I,
acknowledged
definitely.
I
systemic
don't think
racism.
Kenny's ever said
But
anything about Canada not.
all of this progress.
Yo, okay,
I
I
am.
agree. But
wait a
what I'm
minute,
saying
wait a
is,
minute, wait a
Can
minute, wait
we
a
let Desiree talk
minute,
for a sec?
wait a minute.
I feel like
Canada has not even become close to reconciling what it needs to.
no.
Period. No, I'm
Yeah,
not
but we've
done.
done
I've
more.
listened to you. I'm not done. And you cannot, as a black person who has black family in the US, myself, as well as Kenny, we are separate, but we're not separate. What happens to our black family in the US happens to us.
Yeah.
And we are fully aware of what will happen to us in Canada if we get the same type of government. We are fully aware before of anybody else, besides Indigenous folks, what will happen to us. We have been acutely aware for years
and
because
what they
we
say.
are not afforded a border because of the shared history.
Mm-hmm.
And what they say in the United States is like when in the black community when they catch a cold, like, well, how's the wording, um
When we catch a cold,
when
the
white
nation
America
catches
catches
the flu.
when white America catches a cold, black people have ammonia or something more severe, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
stuff, and right, and it's the same in Canada, like with newcomers or indigenous people, black and brown people. When the recession hits, it's 10 times harder for them too, and whatever, right? But like I do on the like for me, I am against. I would never want to dream of us becoming a part of America or anything. I'm not a military person, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if I had to fight for to save my country, sign me up.
Yeah.
Understand
And I
what
think
I'm
a lot
saying?
of Canadians
S-
feel that way. Like if
yeah.
if we have
And
to,
that part right
we have
there.
to. Like I don't
Yeah,
want it to
that
come to
part
that,
right
but
there. Look,
we might need a mandatory
I,
draft. I'm not for that either, but I'm
Oh
not sure I'm
yeah.
against it.
I want to. I want to be clear here. Look, I don't think we've achieved truth and reconciliation.
No, we
What I
haven't.
am saying though is what the Canadian government has done is orders of magnitude more than whatever the U.S. has done.
Mhm.
Well, I
Okay,
think
and so
this.
if we
Hold
want to
on.
hold on, what I'm saying is if
Yeah.
we want to protect that progress, we need to stop thinking
Can I cut
like
in with that?
Americans and
Because
start thinking like Canadians.
I think again,
Go ahead.
isn't PP the candidate that's against wokeism, that's against DEI, that's against taking away all of those safeties that we have for people that are BIPOC, trans, LGBTQ2S plus, disabled, anybody that is in any way not 100% white man is potentially at risk when you take away DEI practices
And
and
the
or
thing
that
about,
mentality
I
of
just want
diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is very much my values.
the one thing about Canada, the difference between Canada and America in terms of that I was always aware from even a kid in elementary school, and I'm 47 years old. The difference is in Canada, in America, it's a melting pot. Once you become American, you are American, right?
Yeah,
In
Canada's a
Canada, we
mosaic.
welcome.
Yeah,
Canada is a mosaic. You are, if you're from Ukraine, you're a Ukrainian Canadian. If I'm Caribbean, I'm a Black Caribbean person. We accept our differences, but we get to keep our cultural identity. You understand what I'm saying?
and we
And
encourage that.
and
Yes,
and and we encourage that. That's the major difference, right? If you
I
are
agree.
not a white American, they're not going to accept you.
And speaking from a loss perspective, I don't want to lose that love of diversity. I don't want people to lose their cultures just because you can be Canadian and whatever other culture that you come from and want to celebrate. And that should be
Hmm.
okay. Like if you're from Jamaica, you should be able to come here and celebrate your Jamaican heritage and still be Canadian. Like we have a love of diversity here. At least that's how I feel. But it's going down with a lot of this hate that is being spread, unfortunately, and I see it coming from the right, where we don't want we want. Okay, let me bring it back to this. Like I felt a really fearful when I saw PP with that Jordan Peterson interview talking about how there was no racism before wokeism came in Canada, and that created the problem. That was ridiculous. That was an utterly
That,
ridiculous thing to say, and it is frankly a racist
yeah,
thing to say.
yeah, yeah,
And I was very disturbed by that because I was basically saying, I'm colorblind. I don't see race, therefore I can't be racist.
yeah,
And I'm sorry, but that's just a load. That's what racist people say.
yeah.
Can I say something?
Absolutely, Desiree.
This whole thing was supposed to be grief and
Yeah,
loss around
and it got off
politics,
topic. I know, and
Mm.
but
and
it was kind of, hold on, it was kind of on topic because
it's
the
the law.
trauma that I felt
Hmm.
and the dismissal and the politics of being Black in Canada was very real, and I'm sure Kenny felt it too.
Hmm.
The grief that comes with that will come with that after, when I get
Yeah.
off and I decompress and I rant and rave with my husband, um, is still really evident
Hmm.
in what is happening in Canada right now. It's, I'm so frustrated. I'm losing my words over
I'm so
this.
sorry. I can't even imagine how it must feel being a Black person in Canada right now,
And we
and hearing some of
scream
this.
this all the time, and people don't listen, And then so we get to a point where it's like, fuck it. You're not listening, but we know that people don't listen to Indigenous folks. We know this.
And
So,
I
and
find a
deep down
common thing
inside,
people go to. Yeah, I find a common thing, and I think it's YT people who do this, is they go to, but it's better than over here, as if that makes it okay.
it's two sides of the same freaking coin.
Yeah.
Like saying, oh,
You
but
know,
in Canada, we did this, this, and this, so we're better than America. So shouldn't you be happier for these scraps that we've given you?
no,
Is what
we
I
live in
hear.
a glass house
And
with muddy freaking windows.
yeah,
And I think too, if sorry, Desiree, if I can jump in, I think too that like what has changed, especially for our like South Asian brothers and sisters who who have who some have been here for generations, and there's a new flux of new people joining the country, and some people are overwhelmed and whatever, but I'm just like, okay, again, we are all new to this, some of us are new to this land and whatever, let's welcome them, you know be respectful, treat each other how we would want to be treated. You understand what I'm saying?
yeah,
um I think some of the issues, like I have a 19-year-old son, and it was hard for him to find his first job, and I think we have to look at what's going on with our politics in terms of how are our young people being able to get their first summer jobs and whatever. Or as if you walk into a store and you're just seeing one set of people just working there, that can be overwhelming, and that can be where the racism and the issues start, right? And
hmm,
we got to look at our politician our corporations and our policies that cause these problems, because these are when little things start to bubble up and create the get back in the bigger issues. You understand what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. I think at the end of the day, I don't want. We're talking about loss. I don't want to lose the steps that we've already taken in Canada by voting for someone
Hmm.
who doesn't respect DEI or doesn't think that racism is a problem, or thinks it's a woke problem. But this
Yeah.
it's basically dismissing it as no big deal.
Or
We
that
don't
it's
need to
not
deal
Hmm.
even
with that.
happening at all.
Pardon me?
Or that it's not even happening at all.
Which it is
Yeah.
clearly, right?
Yeah.
We see it, and we see it. It's become. I live in Alberta, so I find that it's just become much more in your face than it used to be. Racism in Canada used to be under your breath, quiet whispers, and like that's how it felt to me, right? It was always there, but it wasn't as in your face, aggressive as American was. It was more,
Um,
but
as a
that's my
black
perception
as a
as a
black
YT
person,
person. So I
right?
might be
As a
wrong.
black person, that is not what I experienced in Alberta. And
Yeah.
then when I moved to BC, it was very much covert and whispered.
Okay.
You
Yeah, it's
know
more in your face in
and
Alberta.
that's
Yeah, I grew up in
for
Ontario,
me.
so I'm kind of referencing that
Yeah,
for what it used to
and
be.
for
I
me,
think,
it was
yeah.
much harder to deal with as an 11-year-old moving to Alberta or to move to BC. The whispered stuff, because if it's in your face, you know what you're dealing with
Yep.
and who you're dealing with.
Yeah. And these people aren't being, doing it behind your back. How about you, Kenny? How long have you been in Canada, Kenny? Like, I think you mentioned
Um,
you immigrated.
I've been in, yeah, I've been in Canada since over 30 years now. I'm
Okay, a long
47
time.
years old.
Yeah.
So like I grew up in Toronto, you know. So but I'm in Edmonton now. I've been in Edmonton for over almost 20 years now.
Yep.
But I remember when I first came to to Edmonton, like, I'm a big black guy. I'm 6'2",
Hmm.
and stuff. But I work in the social work field, and after work, I would go out with my coworkers, and I would get approached if I'm selling drugs, this and that. And I'm like,
Hmm.
what? I'm like, no, right? And I contributed it to the ignorance of people's, and whatever, right? But at the same time, that was in the early 2000s, and
Yeah.
Edmonton has become, um, and Alberta in the whole has there's a lot more it's been a lot more diverse and more multicultural now, right? And
Hmm.
so I think a lot of the white people are change some of them are changing they're interacting more with a lot more different cultures and stuff, right? And it's
Yep.
becoming more diverse, and I think that is good, you know and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right?
And I say that to people with
Yeah,
TikTok all the time. Like, follow creators that don't look like you.
yeah,
Like, follow
yeah, Desiree,
creators
sorry. Yeah.
of color and learn from them. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Desiree.
My My younger sister is much, much darker than I am.
Yeah.
And she was sitting at a bus stop in Vancouver, and the police pulled
Yeah.
up and asked her who her pimp was.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
said he was just going home from work. She was waiting for the
Yep.
bus. They
Yep.
threatened to have her deported. And
Yeah.
she
Oh,
said, where? Back to Calgary?
Yeah.
You know, I have had cops in BC stop me
Mm-hmm.
and they've got my driver's license and my insurance forms and all that, ask me if I owned my car. I had another cop in BC ask me if I was half and half because they've been stopping lots of half and half lately.
holy.
Oh wow.
The
I can't believe
stories
that
go
came out of their
on
mouth.
and on and on.
See, and
You
these are
know,
the things
even
people
in
don't see. I'm
offenses.
52, obviously white, and I've been stopped one time. I've been driving since I was 16. I've been stopped one time in my life at a drunk driving check stop, and they just waved me past.
The
I
last
didn't even have to say boo.
the last time I had an incident, I went up the wrong side of the road because there was a barrier in the road to get into the alley because the a-hole across the alley always blocked
Yeah,
our parking from the other
Yeah.
way coming off the main drag. And the cops, they were on bikes, cops pull up and I immediately go live, right? I'm sitting in my
Yeah.
car. One cop is grilling me. The other cop is slightly behind the passenger side door with his hand on his hip. And I can see him in the mirror on that side.
Yeah.
yeah,
And the cop on the driver's side is grilling me. And I said, like, look, do what you need to do,
yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
he literally wanted me to grovel to
Mm.
not get a ticket.
Yeah.
And there was a young rookie riding around in circles in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And he finally, the cop was frustrated because he wasn't going to get out of me what he wanted. I wasn't going to
Yeah.
grovel.
Yeah.
And the other cop, the one that was riding around in circles, the rookie, smiled and he kind of chuckled and he said, "Have a good day." He
Yeah.
understood what these other two were doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was in Edmonton. That was just a few years ago.
Yeah.
No,
You know, and
Yeah.
it still
it's very inaccurate to
happens.
say that there's no racism or there's less racism in Canada or little. Like, how do you know if there's less if you haven't lived in both places at the same point in time? You know? And
Mm-hmm.
again, that's even if it is less, even if it is, does that make it okay? I mean, I just invited strong woman wanted to come up. Did you want to add anything right now to
Well,
this?
hi, good afternoon,
Good
everybody.
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I just was piqued. I was listening for a while and then I was piqued because where I work, we had a big push a couple of years ago for equity, inclusion, and just being aware. And we had a sort of somebody lead our department in some exercises, and they asked us
Yeah,
to line up if we had ever been pulled over because of the color of our skin. And it was a real visual exercise because, of course, all the white people in the department had never experienced that. And I found that I became more aware that that's exactly what happens, is that white people usually can't understand racism because we haven't really ever experienced that. I've never been pulled over because of the color of my skin.
no,
But I want you to know it's shocking. And what I really wanted to say is that it's really hard in the workplace to bring racism, or, if you've experienced racism, because it's basically your word against theirs. It's hard to document it. People won't
mm-hmm.
stick up. I have currently in my work, my manager. You would be shocked of the amount of statements that he has made that I could report him, but it would be hard for me to get my manager let go or have something happen or be disciplined for the statements, because it's really,
You're the only one hearing
he
them.
would Yeah, it would be hard, and actually, it would be really shocking. I don't really wanna say where I work, but
No, no, don't get yourself
it's
in trouble.
No, no, yeah,
no,
yeah,
no, no,
don't.
but it's constant. Like, it's constant statements of, like, "I don't trust brown people." I don't like those types of radical statements that
Yep,
make me cringe, and they make me feel bad, because I don't do anything about them, but I know what's gonna happen. We have a very large, uh, employee services where I work, like that type of thing, employment. It would be very hard for me to prove that unless it's something overt where I could have had it videotape. But of course, I can't pull out my phone and start
right.
recording these statements. And
I think
I cringe. I find it so painful because of where I work as well. It's like it would be shocking, not like I don't wanna I don't
No,
wanna
I
be
get
like,
it though. I've, yeah,
she's trying to scare us or trying to be like overt and try to bring that. But I'm just like, I'm in a place where I work
where it shouldn't be
with,
happening. Yeah.
yeah, it
Well, they
just
shouldn't be
shouldn't be.
happening
And it's
anywhere,
like,
but probably more so where you work.
yeah.
I
And when
think
people,
my advice with you would
yes,
be just to call her out to say, listen, you know, I find it very offensive that you're saying these things and whatever, and I would appreciate it that you don't say that around me or whatever, right?
yes,
And then documentation is always important that on this day and this time that you have this conversation and whatever, right? Because if it's affecting you, then it's affecting others. And if you work in uh um a place where you're serving many people, like,
mhm,
and whatever, then you have to stand up for them, like, you understand what I
absolutely,
was saying, right? um and just going back to the racism, it's not just like just with dealing with the police. It's in everywhere we go, like just
absolutely.
access in healthcare, like, you understand what I'm saying,
Oh
like,
yeah,
again, right? And so that's why diversity and DEI and is so important, because again, society is changing. It's not just a cis white Caucasian world that we're living in. We need to have everyone. We need to have, why are white men making um laws or rules about women's bodies and
Mhm.
what they can access in healthcare or
Yep.
whatever, right?
Well,
I
that's what we
don't
have going on.
know. Yeah, I don't know what it is like to be a white woman. Or Norm, do you know what it is to be a black or brown indigenous woman and whatever, right? There's cultural needs, there's different types of things. So we need that diversity. When a place is diverse and whatever, it functions. It's been proven that they function better.
There's beauty in diversity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Kenny,
Yep.
I lost a job correcting somebody's views,
Yep.
you have to be
and
careful.
she was a YT person and went crying to the
Yeah.
boss, and they
Yeah.
took her word and didn't even ask me what happened or
Yeah.
what was said. So
Yeah.
documenting doesn't, and calling out somebody gently
Mm-hmm.
does not,
There's a
99%
worth
of the
risk
time
to it.
does not work.
Yeah,
It
for
mhm,
does
sure.
not.
yeah,
You need to have somebody else, preferably a YT person, in the room who is an ally who will
Yeah.
jump in and say, hey, wait, no. And
Mm-hmm.
Jana's heard this story before.
Yeah.
I was walking into the lunchroom with somebody who is Métis but is white
Mm-hmm.
presenting, and
Yeah.
we were talking about the Friday potluck.
Yeah.
And the pharmacist who was in the room, who is not YT
Mm-hmm.
specifically, but he was
Yeah.
not a black person, turned
Yeah.
around and said, well, you should bring chicken since you're black.
Wow.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that
Yeah, I
kind of
even heard
thing.
this story before, but I'm
And
still shocked. I can remember that part. Wow.
yeah, and the person I was walking up the hallway with, before I could even register what he said, jumped
Mm-hmm.
all over him. but she had the privilege to do that.
Yeah.
That's where that works.
And I think it's
Yeah.
really
If I
important that
had
the
been
YT
alone,
people act as allies. When you see these things, you are in a safer space to call them out.
Yeah.
You just are.
right? You
Because
If
know,
I've had
obviously,
debates, like they call it, on some of my posts, virtue signaling. I'm not going
Hmm.
to ignore racism when I see it just because someone's going to claim I'm virtue signaling, because that's not what I'm doing. I'm just telling you what I see. You know,
Hmm.
if you're going to say something racist, I'm probably going to call it out. And if I get called out for virtue signaling because of it, I'll take that. It's not my intent. So, but I think as allies, it's up to us to do that. You know, to be aware when it happens and be the one to say something, not just kind of shut down and not want to rock the boat, right? And you can be polite and still speak up. Like a lot of people think that assertiveness is not polite. It can be very polite. It's just a matter of doing it. And it's too
I
bad that,
am
yeah, go ahead.
completely fascinated by the group in Ottawa who has worked for the Canadian government.
Mm,
Black employees. Have you followed that story where they were all passed up
sure
for
have.
they were
mm,
passed up for promotions and detailing how they had qualifications, and they worked there 10, 12 years, and they 20 years they still sat at the same job being bypassed, and now they're actually trying to sue the government because this, affected their pension and how
absolutely.
they retired because they had the same level of pay, because you're probably getting your best 5 years and always trying to move on and trying to, and it's just shocking to
I'm gonna have
me
to look
that,
into that. Is it Canadian, like federal
yeah,
government,
Canadian
provincial?
government, yeah,
Okay.
read up on
It
they
was,
are trying to, I think, sue the government
Who
because
is?
there's a large group of them,
Okay.
yes.
and they were all, I believe, I don't know if there is, I think it's only Black employees. I don't know if there was Indigenous included. I believe it's Black, where they have worked for a long time and they were bypassed jobs, the same ones they can detail, and they went to their
Hmm,
managers and they talked and they sat and they waited, and were promised or thought they would have promotions and move on, and it's like,
right.
it's so sad
Yeah.
in
That's
2025, like
hard to
even in
believe. Like,
the 2000s, like 2001 or
That's
2003, people have worked there 20 years, and this is still happening. This is not happening where they went back in the 80s even, or 70s, and I'm not saying that
no,
makes it right, but
strong women.
would
you
be
know what I mean?
more
That story was overshadowed by Canada Post
stress.
Right.
strikes. It came out at the same time. There was one little blurb on CBC, nothing on CTV, and
Hmm.
it was essentially buried.
Yeah, and that can happen sometimes when big things come out at the same time, is one ends up burying the other, and that's too bad. I'm going to look into that. That's an interesting. I didn't know anything about it, so and that's sad, right? That I read all kinds of politics, come across all kinds of posts, and that is new to me.
But isn't it such an oxymoron that, the government is
Did it?
supposed to be the most progressive, but in actuality, they are not showing that with their Black employees,
Yep.
Indigenous employees.
Yeah,
And
I think this is a group in actual Ottawa, like in the
yeah,
Canadian government buildings.
yeah, they
They're
Hmm.
are.
working for the Canada government. And you get hired and you're in a department, and you start out sort of maybe at the bottom, even if what, in 2000s you're maybe 25 years old or whatever, and then you're thinking, okay, 25 years from now I will be 50 and I will be have promoted my way because of my education,
Right.
because of my experience. I will be ready for the next job, the next tap on the shoulder. When Joe or Susie retires, I will be ready to be the manager of the department or the senior manager because I have that. And they were all bypassed
Yeah,
That
and
is
there,
time after
there
time.
again, the political grief that as a Black woman,
absolutely.
it's like being stabbed repeatedly, because if
Hmm.
it's not just happening to the Black folks that, as me, we're community. And if it's happening to community in Ottawa at the federal level, it's still happening. It still affects me
Absolutely. It
on
affects all of us. Yeah. Like,
well,
well, it
but as
affects
a
all
black
people of color.
person,
Yeah.
you
Directly.
know, yeah, like it's that it's the reality of it,
Hmm.
and that grief. When do we get a chance to freaking let go of that grief?
That's the hard part because it's still happening, right?
Hmm.
That must be like, well, now that I think about it, that is really hard because you can't be done grieving when the event isn't over. And it's not
Right,
over. It's never, I shouldn't say it's never over, but not any time in our foreseeable future, right?
right.
In our lifetime, it's going to continue to be an issue. So that's
May
really
I
sad.
speak? Yeah, yeah. I would. I have. I have in the past, when I worked for the federal government in the Ottawa Gatineau area, hired a Black woman,
Hmm.
and I have to tell you, she was by far the best employee I had. It worked out that way. She was a woman. I'm so happy I hired her. We became very good friends. And it just, I also hired an Asian employee, and he was brilliant. We did a lot of data sheets, Excel sheets, and he was amazing. He was studying at the University of Ottawa and for his commerce degree,
Well,
and
yeah.
thank goodness for him. But I just want, more importantly, my daughter-in-law is Indian. She's from India.
Hmm.
She has been attacked
I was going to say
quite a
there's been a
few
lot of
times.
anti-brown racism,
Yeah, yeah,
specifically Indian
yeah.
racism towards Indians. I see it a lot in Edmonton because we have a lot of people who are you're either Indian or the Arab nation kind of areas, right? So either Muslim or Hindu,
Awesome.
and they get a lot of racism directed towards them right now. Same thing in BC, I think. There's a lot in BC.
There's a
Well,
phrase that we in the Black community have used for a very, very, very long time, and we know we have to be twice as good. We have to perform twice as well to be considered half as good.
Hmm. Exactly, and it should never be that way. But it's a
So
reality that you guys
we're
face. You know.
and where I have been, in school, I was on the honor roll, but I had to be even considered a person of any
Yeah.
value. I couldn't just be. I became an overachiever.
Yeah. That's it.
And
That's not an
I
uncommon
joke.
response.
No, and I joke about it, but that's the reality. Is most BIPOC people have to become overachievers to get recognized
It's
as
very,
being an
yeah,
equal.
it's a good point. You shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to put in more work for the same for the same end result, right? But you do, and that's what we're working against. Oh, Kenny is back. Must have dropped by mistake. Um, so I wanted to talk a little bit more about how that makes you feel. Like how is that grieving process? Like for you, Desiree, with
It
just
just,
everything going on right now.
in that respect, like the grief just never really goes away. We get
Hmm.
used to it living in that suspended state.
Yeah,
Now, that's not to say that we don't feel happiness at the same time, but that grief is like that red thread that, that we see connecting everything,
yeah,
and it's like, it's almost like a shadow. That's a better, uh, better way to describe it. It's that shadow that sits there, and
yeah,
some days that shadow isn't as prominent, and other days that shadow is it clouds everything.
Mhm.
exactly. And It can be hard because you're right. You do live different realities at the same time sometimes. Like you can be very happy in your personal life, but politically you feel or in other areas of your life, you feel very like you have to be on guard all the time. Hypervigilant is the word I was looking for. Hypervigilant
Yeah.
about right now I'm feeling hypervigilant about politics, for example, but I'm because of what's going on, but that's new, right? I've not had that feeling before. I've not had to go through that my whole life with politics.
As a Black person in Canada,
Exactly.
our lives are political. Period. There's no escaping it.
Yeah. And so a lot of us that are feeling this uncertainty now that aren't used to it are feeling at least not the same as what you feel, but feeling that uncertainty for the first time. But we've had the luxury of not having to feel that certainty our whole lives. And then for you, it's double or triple or you know what I mean? Because you have other areas. Like as a woman, I feel insecure right now in Canada with everything going on because I don't believe that women's rights are high on the conservative agenda. And I feel like, again, we might lose some of our rights, frankly. We might lose some of our rights if things go conservative
Can I
in our
ask a
government.
question if you don't mind
Go ahead,
me
Penny. Yeah,
asking? Just like because like we're talking about the difference between Canadians and Americans, right?
we have,
And
yeah.
when you, I don't know if you've ever had a chance to be on the side of American TikTok, and
I
when they're
have.
talking
It's
about this,
scary. Go
right?
ahead.
Yeah, but hold on, Desiree, sorry. Is there's also a huge difference between white women and
Mm-hmm,
black women, right?
mm-hmm,
And especially how or white American women, sorry,
yeah.
white American women, right? I don't, and so as a white Canadian woman, is there a difference? Because are you able to
Yes.
say to your men that, you know what? No,
Mm-hmm.
I am not agreeing with you because the difference is with white American women, they will align themselves, right, with white supremacy or white nationalism or whatever, right? For I don't know, right? This is what I
That's a
see. You
complicated
understand what I'm
question,
saying?
Kenny.
Kenny,
Yeah, right. Because there's such a cultural divide from Canada to America, right? Right. And even though there are some similarities, I want to know, like, just from I've never really thought about it just until now. As a white Canadian woman, would you be able to say, you know what, honey? Or if I
Oh, I
am
would,
not,
but I
I'm
don't
gonna
know about the
vote.
average. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
I am gonna vote for I can see a white woman as the prime minister. I can
mhm,
see a woman of whatever
yeah.
any woman being in a job that's not necessarily
You
you
can pick
know
Jagmeet. I might vote for Jagmeet Singh. Like, I don't know that
yeah
I'm probably going to
okay.
vote liberal, but I'm just saying that there's nothing, you know what I mean? Like, would you feel
yeah
comfortable? And I would,
Kenny,
if that was who I thought was the best candidate,
I
I'd
don't
have no
I
problem with
I
it.
we
don't
are
know. I
we are
had I had some doubt in Ontario. I don't know how you could ever study this or prove it. I
It's
wasn't
hard.
100% convinced that Bonnie Crombie was not considered or viewed, you know, if it had been a man running the Liberal Party in
yeah.
I'm going to admit
Ontario.
that is something that worries me even federally. Like,
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
know. I know how I feel. I am not confident that enough whitey people will vote for a woman
And
or enough
is that
people will vote for
it
a
comes
woman.
down to and
mhm.
the old adage is Chrystia Freeland actually firm and strong, or is she perceived as a bitch because she is white and a
Yeah.
woman? Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's
And
that whole
she is a hard
construct.
negotiator, but that's a
But I
respected thing with men,
Okay.
isn't it?
in
Honestly,
in reference to the US, Kenny, I would
yeah
say everything filters from the top down. So you literally have a white supremacist
hmm
as a
Current leader.
president.
Hmm.
yeah
Yeah. So the thing
Kenny's
is
from
that he's
Canada.
a white man of privilege. He doesn't like you know, I don't know his views. And so the people that align with him for the most part are white men, and white MAGA women seem to be following that. So, I mean, I guess they would toe the line of their husband. There's that whole, it goes back to that whole thing there of how, you know, it's the whole thing's the whole round circle there of how it's perceived. So that's hard. I don't know, but then think back to Obama days. Do you
Yeah.
think that you saw women following their men, or do you think it was opened up and it was more free because they saw this couple in power? I mean, you
But
know,
I think I
Well,
look
wait a
back.
minute. Wait a
I
minute.
look.
Can I jump in here?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Desiree. Yep.
Honestly, from what I see, from my vantage point or disadvantage point, however, in Canada, I see a white woman becoming prime minister before I see a black man becoming prime minister.
okay.
That's what I see. I don't think as
So you
progressive
think they're
as Canadians
more
claim they
progressive
are.
feminism style than
I don't think they're progressive enough. You know, and with Obama, his male privilege, leave the black off, his male privilege put him ahead of any female in the
yeah.
US.
Yeah.
You
And then
know,
when you put Kamala Harris up,
and she's even further down the rung. If
Yeah.
they had had a white woman running instead of Kamala, we might have seen something different.
but we saw
But
Clinton
it was
lose.
too close
And I
to
mean, and a lot of
home.
people have reasons for not liking Clinton, but over Trump,
Yep.
like
Yep.
really, like
But I've
when those were your
always
two
said that.
choices.
I've always said that Trump is the definition, the picture, put it in the encyclopedia, the dictionary, the web of what white privilege is. Because here's a man that he likes to say that he started from nothing, he built it up. He's on like every job every business that he had has failed and bankrupt. And he's been, you know, if Obama had 3 baby mothers, you know, ex-wives cheated
Yeah.
on them multiple times, this and that, he would have never got into the Oval Office. Yet the white Christians are like, oh, Trump is the next savior. Obama was
Mm,
the antichrist and everything. Pardon me? What?
I know.
You know, the
I don't understand that,
family
Kenny.
values and everything. What? You understand what I'm saying, right? And so it's the vast difference of the when you line up the two, right? And I think I look like the thing that gets me frustrated as an adult, like people forget that when like George Bush to me was one of the worst presidents, but next to Trump, I would take George Bush 100 times over Trump, right? Because
Yeah.
people forget that at the end of Bush's presidency, the world's economy was so terrible. The auto industry, the banking industry was crippled because of poor regulations and whatever.
Hmm.
And when Obama came in, he bailed out the auto industry. He regulated the bank industry, and that's when the economy improved
Yeah.
because of what he did, and how people quickly forget how far that Obama brought America back to. And when he did those 8 years, it was a you know what, let's put black America or put browner people back into their place, because it was a retaliation. I personally
Mhm.
feel it was a retaliation because white America was this feeling threatened and whatever.
Yeah,
Interesting take.
Don
I mean,
Lemon
you might be
called it
right.
a whitewash.
But yeah. Say
Yeah.
that again, Desiree. Sorry.
Don Lemon called it, and he
Yeah.
said it was a white lash.
Yeah, it was
Ooh,
it
good term.
it yeah, it was it was we are losing our country, and if we don't get it back, whatever, we will never get it back, and whatever, and that's where we are right now.
Yeah. And I just don't want to see Canada end up going down the same road as the United
Yeah,
States, because it's already like, I don't want to say it's over for them, but the election is done and they're stuck with Trump until, I don't know. I don't know when. Probably not just 4 years if the guy lives.
but I think
Um,
as Canadians, sorry if I don't, sorry
no, go
if I
ahead.
can.
Yeah.
I think as Canadians, what we can do to separate us right from America, and I think like when I was a kid, my mom always used to put me into Saturday school for Black history, and I learned a lot about the Black Panther Party and the civil
Whoa.
rights movement. And
Yeah.
I used to be a government employee, and I'm a union steward, and I believe in the union, like being right and fighting for our rights. And as Canadians, we have to keep or fight for our rights. But at the same time, as Canadians, we understand what our values are. And the thing with America, they're strictly about capitalism.
Yeah.
You
And we have
understand
to
what I'm
figure out who
saying?
we are as Canadians. And
Yeah.
I think that this is a
As
very defining
Canadians, our
moment.
healthcare, our educational system, and our healthcare, our balance of life is what are important for us. Our quality of life, and everything cannot be for the almighty dollar. Yes, you need a free market, but a standard of living. Right now, as Canadians, rent and mortgages and the house prices. And I was reading an article this morning about how millennials can't afford to move out of their parents' home and whatever. Right?
Mhm.
What is gonna be our values for? Right? That's what
Exactly.
we have to stand up for these corporations. Like, how is Amazon gonna just close down, all those jobs in Quebec, and we're still shopping with Amazon? You understand what I'm saying? We need 'cause these they have separate in America. There's no middle class no more,
No, they've,
right?
they're,
It's either super rich or super poor. And at least with Canada, we have a set standard, but we have to fight to maintain these standards.
exactly. And Amazon is a great point, because I think a lot of us, like I have cut back my Amazon purchases hugely, but I've not completely quit yet. And I'll admit that. And I need to.
Yeah, me too.
We need to
Me too.
go, like, because there's some stuff off Amazon that is just really hard for me to get somewhere else. That's the
Yep.
stuff that's suffering. Like everything else,
Yep.
I'm pretty good at just, I can wait till Tuesday and go to this store and pick that up.
Yep.
But
Yep.
there's those few items, and I really need to work harder at sourcing them elsewhere, and maybe it's more trouble, but it's worth it. Or maybe I have
Well,
to pay a little bit more, but it's worth
yeah.
it.
And I think that's why I like us just not shopping and only strictly buying Canadian groceries and
Hmm.
Canadian products
Yep.
and stuff, because the only way corporations learn is if you hit them with in their pockets. And the only way that Trump or the United States is going to learn is if their pockets get hit.
Yeah, and it's a way of, like, we were talking about loss, and it's a way of actually controlling at least some of your response
Oh,
to what we've
definitely.
lost, is having that sense of
Definitely.
control, and maybe doing these things like dropping Amazon if you can 100%, or as much as you possibly can. Go to your local, buy
Yeah.
Canadian. Yesterday
But I
was a
think,
big.
yeah.
Weren't supposed to spend money on anything we didn't have to yesterday. I had to pick up some food, so I went to a private fish shop, like a
Hmm.
privately owned
Hmm.
store, and bought from there instead. It was more expensive, but
Hmm.
it was worth it
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
particular case. So do what
Yeah,
we can do.
I'm a generation X, right? And I remember growing up in the 80s and stuff, like, we always said stick it to the man, stick it to the man. And everyone knew who the man was, but I think people have forgotten that if we boycott certain corporations and stand up, like even with Coca-Cola, I love Coke, but I will no longer buy Coca-Cola ever again, because what they
Mhm.
did was foul.
Was that I think I know what you're talking about with Coca-Cola. I couldn't find
Yeah.
whether that was true or not. If that was just a really well, um, not a scam, but rumor, because I've not
A
been able to
rumor.
find. Yeah, I've not been able to find any facts that Coke really did lock or take employees and call
Hmm.
ICE on them. So it might have happened, but it might not have.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
kind of in that
Can I
gray
just say
area.
something?
Because it's hard to. It was so true. Addicted Bear says, "Do you have any source on that?" Because I did look about a week ago and I couldn't find anything. But
They probably
Coke is an
wiped it.
American company anyway, so it's still a choice,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
besides that, they are an American company. Like I'm not buying
Yep.
Coke products because of their American company.
Yep.
I'm not sure about the ice bin, but that's enough for me.
Hmm.
Can I
So
jump
like
in
I'm
for
trying to buy as much Canadian and if I have to, I buy produce and stuff from other countries. But I'm skipping on the
Hmm.
American stuff 100%.
Yep. 100%.
Like
okay?
I will not be
So
drinking orange juice anytime soon, and I'm fine with that.
there was a company in Norway today. They will not fuel American ships coming in. They stopped that. The world, he's going to isolate himself right down to where, I don't know, it's going to be like a true depression where it's very bleak because
Well,
no country is going to want
that's
to
what
trade
happened in
with them.
Germany. They were in a bad economic situation
But I think he
from the
knows
20s
that
and
because
30s, and yeah,
I have a lot of American friends that I talk to daily on different panels, and even my best friend, he moved back to Florida, and he's like, a lot of them are like, man, I'm just waiting for that $5,000 stimulus check. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying?
yeah.
And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, listen, man, he's just giving you $1,000 for the next 4 years that he's in
If he even does
government
it.
for. Even it's not even
And
worth it,
if
man.
it happens, was it worth what you gave up or what other people are
Exactly.
suffering? Is it worth that to you?
Exactly.
And he's like 20%. He's raising it to, it was 10%, and then he raised it to 20 for China. And it's like China is completely self-sufficient. They do
Yeah.
not need the USA for anything.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to buy their products because it's 20% tariff,
Yeah.
and that you're hoping, like, they don't care. They
Well,
don't
and
care.
these tariffs are going to hurt the Americans so badly, like the lumber, the aluminum, all of this it's going to hurt Canada too. We know.
It
And
does.
I
But you know
still hope
what?
our government counter tariffs. I do. And I know that's going to hurt me and I don't care.
But you know what drives me
Well, I do
crazy,
care,
Arab?
but
You know
yeah.
what was driving me crazy is like each day I pick up my wife from work and we get home around like 5:30 and I'm like, oh, I gotta watch the national news, gotta watch the national news, right? And I was just like I think yesterday I was thinking because I think he decided to change the date of when the tariffs are going to take
Yeah.
in place. Then the next day he changed, and I'm like, you know what? I don't care no more. Like, you
It's
understand what
basically it's a form of terrorism. He keeps changing
exactly,
the goalpost. Do this and I won't do
every
this. And then he
day.
just changes it. And it's terrorism.
think-
It's emotional
Yeah,
terrorism.
it's
I think it was good that Trudeau started right from the beginning. He set that tone and had that speech. So I think Trump was like, wait a minute. The country seems to be rallying together. Like they're going to be not crumbling, right? And if you watch CBC when you get home, that Andrew Chang does a feature every night. And I watched it the other day because, he was explaining about aluminum and steel and how every part for a car is
yeah. I
made.
saw that. I did see
Quite
that. Yeah,
interesting. I did
yeah,
not know that. But it's like even he took one part of the car,
yeah.
which was like the pistons.
Yep.
And the aluminum and steel is sent to, 20% tariff that
Yep.
you're making only, it goes down to the States where they make the one part of it, and then it comes back to Canada, and then it goes back down to the States to make the casing of it, and then it goes back to Canada, and that's only for one part of the car.
Yep.
Okay,
Our economies are so deeply entwined. Like,
And the auto
Here for
industry
a
in
minute.
America said they will not survive. They will not survive. The
I don't
auto
think Trump
industry.
cares.
Yeah,
Like,
he makes these statements like, "Oh, we're going to be self-sufficient and make every car like we don't need to do to Canada." But it's not possible to set up within a week you're going to make plants. Like you don't have aluminum and steel or lumber to build facilities to make car parts. Like I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about.
well, and they don't have
I
a great
think
lumber industry. I
I think
worry about the
Desiree
national
wanted to go
parks in the
next.
States because he's
Okay.
talking about, we've got plenty of trees here. Where is he going to get them?
Okay, please let me jump in
Oh,
here.
yeah. Can I let Desiree and then Healing wanted to say something and then we'll let Laura
Yeah,
speak.
so a few points here. Andrew Chang, as much as I enjoy watching his segments, he was very pro Canada Post when he was doing his stuff. He was not reporting everything. And he royally pissed me off with his post about Canada Post.
Oh yeah, I'm not making a statement about him, but I just found
More
that
about
what
the
he
point.
was telling me about
Okay.
the
Secondly, Kenny, Stick It to the Man came out of the 60s out of the US. Now, if people want to go shopping, there's well.ca in Canada. It's Canada's kind of version to Amazon. You're not going to find anything on there, but you're going to find a lot of stuff that you're going to find on Amazon. The other thing is Temu
Yeah,
has a
Timu's a good
lot
one.
of those items that they also sell on Amazon. You can bypass them. It's going to take 10 days to get your package, but whatever. And for
Think in
cheaper,
advance. Yep.
significantly cheaper sometimes. It's a lot of the same products. The only thing with Temu, and we can't get away from using PayPal because it's the only one out there that's secure. You make your purchases using your PayPal account, not with your credit card.
Okay.
And not with your bank card. So Temu is a very, very good option for buying
And right now,
stuff.
I'd rather give my money to China if I'm going to make a choice.
Exactly.
Yeah. And in healing, what did you want to add?
Going back to where everyone was saying buy Canadian, what I did notice was a lot of posts from American people asking Canadian people to show us some of your snacks and where do we get them from? Because now a lot of the American people are starting to buy Canadian as well, trying to support us because they don't like what's going on in their country. So, you know, and a lot of people have been posting, and I guess one of the most I think the most popular one has been our maple dare cookies that a lot of the Americans are now ordering. So I thought,
I love our
yay.
maple cookies.
Oh my God, they're so good. So yeah, they were asking, where do we buy them and how can we get them? And there were even a few people on there saying, hey, I can get them to you. So we just need to, I think, continue supporting our country by buying Canadian. Eventually they're going to get it. Like a lot of people say, it doesn't really matter. Well, yes, it does. It'll eventually make a big impact. So, like
even
they
tourism,
say,
like a lot of people canceled trips, and I think now is a good
Definitely.
time to replan your vacations if the United States was going to be on that list. I
Yeah,
wouldn't go
and
there for a
selling their
number of reasons.
properties and selling their properties
Mhm.
in Florida and Arizona, and rightfully so. And I do apologize. I saw a comment saying that I was hogging the conversation, so I
Actually,
do apologize
no need to
if
apologize,
offended
Kenny.
any
You had a lot
if
of
I
interesting
offended
things to
anyone.
say. Yeah. No, I really enjoyed this conversation. I know we went off topic quite a bit. I let it because it was it is still about loss. It's just a little bit more specific to the kind of loss that you're feeling if you're BIPOC right now, which is a lot. Because this is scary. What's happening is scary, and us turning more American or becoming a 51st state is a very scary thing for a lot of us for all kinds of reasons, right? And the lack or the dismantling of democracy in the states, plus the absolute hate on for anything DEI, is a scary thing. And I hear that being parroted with PP and his wanting to get rid of woke DEI culture. He wants us to go back to I don't know what when make Canada great again. When were we great? That's a question you asked, and I don't freaking know. But I think they know what they mean, and they mean when YT men ruled the world, and that's not the Canada I want to go back to. I don't
And
think we should
thank
go
you.
back anywhere. We should be moving forward, not backwards.
And thank you for like you've been a great moderator. Like the conversation's been very respectful and allowing different people to talk and stuff like that. So again, if I overstep my boundaries, I do
No,
apologize and stuff
and I
like
hope
that.
you come back again,
Kenny,
Kenny, because you were a great guest.
There's no need, Kenny. And all these times, I always learn something from everybody. I've never sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, conversation. We all have something to learn. We all have something to learn and share conversation. That's why we join here. So don't apologize. You know what? We have a phrase in my family. No matter how good you dance, some people just won't clap, Kenny. Never please
that is very true.
Everybody.
Yeah.
You can never please everybody all the time.
So I'm going to close. Oh, I was just going to say I could shut it down soon, strong, but go ahead and finish. Just in a couple minutes, I do need to do my closing.
That's what I was going to say. I'm going to head out. I indulged myself in, I shouldn't say this, a Netflix TV show, Running Point. It was that little basketball show, 10 parts. So such an easy watch. It's
Oh, it's nice
Kate
sometimes.
Hudson.
I go to my K
Yeah,
dramas for that. It's the
yeah,
Korean dramas,
it's
and it's just
fun.
so completely different than everything going on in my world that it's a
Yeah,
nice vacation.
yeah. So it's put me behind though in my days. I have to go out.
Mhm.
But it
Okay,
was
well,
nice
you
to
have
join. I hope to see you all again and have a lovely rest of your Saturday. And I want to go back. I want to go back to the night that Canada won the hockey game and that feeling that the country had. That was the
that was
best. That's the
awesome.
back to.
Thank you so much for dropping by.
Take care
Okay,
now.
Take
so I'm just
care.
going to do
And
my
you know what?
closing.
I learned something last night. It's better for your algorithm if you kick me out than
Oh,
I
is it?
drop off.
Okay, I'll see if I can. Thank you. Have a
Okay,
great day.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Okay, so I'm just going to do. Does anyone actually? Let me give you guys a minute. Is there any closing remarks? Anything you'd want to say, Desiree, before I give the information on the next shows?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for everybody for their input, because everybody's input matters.
Yeah, thank you. It does. And healing. Did you want to say anything in closing?
No, just stay strong and let's keep supporting one another in every way we can.
Absolutely. And Kenny?
No, thank you. I decided I just came across your live and found the conversation informative and I decided to follow you. So hopefully I
Thank
can
you.
come back and yeah,
We have a
join again.
we have a lot of really
Okay.
good, interesting conversations on Beaver politics. So
Yeah,
I'm
for
just going to
Yeah.
give
sure.
a little lowdown.
Okay,
So
wait
thank
a
you guys.
minute. I didn't get a chance to say anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you did. Go ahead, Desiree.
No, that wasn't me. Kenny, I followed you because
Yeah.
I'm sure we can have some good conversations. I'm also thinking about going live for Canadian issues.
Okay,
Mm,
awesome.
So I got to talk to some people about doing that through Beaver Politics because it's Canadian, right? And they have a big platform.
yeah,
So because I think it's time that Black Canadian voices were elevated.
I
Mm-hmm.
agree. I
Past time, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And if people are going to come in and listen to a bunch of Black people talk about what they deal with day to day, or how they feel about something, or how they cope with something, I think that would be beneficial.
I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a great idea, Desiree.
And I've been thinking about it for a long time. But I specifically want to elevate Black Canadian voices.
I,
For sure.
I think that's awesome.
So yeah, it's I'm a little frustrated right
Yeah.
now. Aside from the fact that they got my burger wrong, my husband just got back.
Oh no. No, I think
Yeah,
you should
so
check with Beaver Politics about that, and
that's what I'm going to do, right?
I think
And
that's
I
great.
think they would welcome that. I just had to think about what exactly I wanted it to be on and
And do you
how
know who you
to.
would reach out to?
Yes,
Yeah, if you don't, shoot me a chat after, and I'll help you out.
Oh,
yeah.
so this is not your page? This is not your Beaver
This is
Politics?
I am a piece of a puzzle, or our Beaver
Okay.
Politics mosaic. We have different hosts, and I'm going to go over that actually next. So I'll do my
Okay.
closing down. Thank you all for coming today. Next on Beaver Politics, on Saturday afternoons, we have Radicalized at 5 p.m. Radicalized at 5 to 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, 8 to 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, and he talks about the gray matter of politics and how religion is impacting the political atmosphere. On Sundays, in the evening, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 to 8 Eastern, we have a Damn Happy Life with Happy. And he's looking for a deeper perspective on how people define happiness and are enjoying and exploring the moments of growth through their lives. Mondays, we have Indigenous Matters, and that's hosted by Treaty 6 Bird, and that's 5 to 7 Pacific, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's talking about the effects of politics on Indigenous communities and how Indigenous peoples can affect the political structure. On Tuesdays, we have News Hour with Frontline Feminists. That's 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific, 8 to 10 Eastern. And that's highlighting the biggest news from the week or weekend and what you might be missing and bringing it to the forefront. On Wednesdays, we have the Mossy Side, and that's with the Progressive Moose. And he is on from 5 to 6:30 Pacific, 8 to 9:30 Eastern Time. And this is the messy side of politics, diving deep into weekly topics. Thursdays, we have the Navigation Station with the Misses. 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Pacific, 4 to 5:30 Eastern. It's education, resources, and solutions to help navigate the Canadian political landscape. Then we have in the evening through Discord with Mrs. Radical, 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Or 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 to 6:30 Pacific. And it's weekly discussions on relevant news topics or social issues. And then on Fridays, we have Canadian History with a Purple Crayon, and that's hosted by Pixie Lee. That's 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's Canadian History prior to Canada, with a focus on BIPOC perspectives. And we have Polititalk, hosted by Nerdy, 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific, 8 to 2 a.m. Eastern Time, weekly debates over politics, social issues, and focusing on Canada, including the United States. And on Saturdays, again, is Breaking the Dam, 12 noon to 2 p.m.
When you have your head turned away, it sounds like you're underwater.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm going to just move my microphone. I'll remember that for next time, Desiree. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just reading off my other screen because I cannot memorize all of this.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming today. You're more than welcome to come back anytime. I've loved having you all here, and I will be here again next week, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Mountain Standard Time, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you're not already following Beaver Politics, please give us a follow. And have a great day, everyone. It's been so nice talking to you.